You're listening to a BGE podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Wednesday edition of the Blind Grilling Story, where I talk about the history and food that got me where I am today. One day I got off the school bus and was walking up the driveway, and my dad hollered at me and said, "Jump in the truck, we got to run into Jerome and pick up a goat." I thought, that's strange. It's something I hadn't really heard before. But all right, I jumped in the bed of the pickup and we headed down the gravel road towards the little township there of Jerome, Missouri. Now, Jerome sat right on the Gasconade River and was kind of built on a hillside sloping down towards the river. And you could go right up to the very top of the hill, which was pretty much the edge of town. And right up there on top was a little old church building. And I had a friend who lived right up there on top, and some other kids that had rode the school bus with me who lived around a couple of houses and trailers around that area. My dad pulled in and said, "All right, keep your eyes out. There's a goat that we need to pick up." I think, what do you mean, keep your eyes out? There's a goat we got to pick up. Well, he'd gotten a call from a few folks that lived up there asking if he would come and pick up this goat, because nobody knew where it came from. Nobody was claiming it, and it was terrorizing that entire little town of Jerome, Missouri. It was running dogs, it was beating them in the head with its horns, and it was even chasing after little kids, let alone eating and biting and chewing on anything and everything that it ever came close to. Well, pretty soon that goat came running around a corner, and there he was, stopped right in his tracks, looking at us. And it was obvious he was just about to charge when my dad made the first move. And he wrapped a rope around his neck and held on close to him, and that goat just kind of stood there like, wait a minute, what just happened? He began walking that goat over to the truck. Now, this goat had about 4 inches of horns, and right in the middle of those horns were those glands where they just wanted to rub and hit and bump and do anything and everything that they could to satisfy an itch like you just can't reach it. We loaded him up in the back of the truck. My dad said, "You ride back here with him, make sure he don't jump out." Man, that was the longest few miles back to the house, as that goat was biting and chewing and nudging and poking them horns just all over me, and I thought I was going to die right there in the back of that truck with that billy goat. Well, we get him to the house, and my dad gets him out and gets some feed and turns him loose in the yard and lets him go. And he stuck around. And I thought, now, Dad, what are we going to do with this billy goat? Because it's a billy goat. We can't milk it. We're not going to get anything out of it. And that's when my dad told me, "Son, we're going to have a barbecue." What? A barbecue? Barbecue goat? He said, "Oh, yeah. It's going to be some good stuff." And I thought, well, we've eaten a lot of things here on the farm, and I've been willing to try just about all of them. I might as well try some goat, if that's what Daddy's going to make. I mean, after all, it looks like a small deer. Surely it wouldn't be bad. Be pretty good, you would think. Well, we were going to find out. The thing about that billy goat is, he began to get a little bit of a reputation around our place. Every once in a while, we would hear some hounds sounding off and barking, and we'd wonder, what in the world is going on? what are them dogs barking at? And we'd go out, and we had our dogs. They had dog houses, and they'd be chained up because these were our coon hounds. And that billy goat would be up on top of a dog house with a hound stretched out as far as that chain would let him go, trying to get away, as that billy goat would rear up on his hind legs and haul off and nail that dog right in the head and send him whimpering into his doghouse. It was, you had to feel sorry for the dogs, but you couldn't help but laugh at the same time. Well, we had a couple of pups that we would let loose, and we were working on training them for coon hunting. And some of the funniest things would happen as we would be sitting in the living room, and pretty soon we would see this goat go running by the window. And right behind it would be a couple of hounds just barking and going nuts, just chasing this billy goat. And you'd hear that goat just going off, and you'd hear them hounds right behind him. Well, pretty soon, the next round, as they came around the corner of the house, you would have the billy goat chasing the hounds. And the hounds were running to get away from the billy goat. You never knew who was chasing who. Well, Dad decided, let's get out there and break it up. Let's find out what's happening. He said, in fact, let's go out there and get that coon that we've caught in the cage, and let's work on getting these hounds to tree. So we thought, all right, that's what we're going to do. So we got that cage with that coon in it, got a rope thrown up over the limb, and we were going to work on pulling that coon up into that tree and get them hounds to learn how to start treeing. And sure enough, them hounds took to it pretty quick and pretty easy. But the funniest thing that I think I'd ever seen up to that time was as those hounds had them front paws up on that tree, baying at that coon, that billy goat came right up to that tree and did the same thing. He jumped up and put his front hooves up on that tree and just started going to town like he was a coonhound. And you'd never know the difference. We laughed about that, and still, in fact, we're still laughing about that very same thing even today. Never saw anything like it since. That goat and that hound, man, they just ran around together, and sometimes we didn't know if those hounds thought they were goats or if that goat thought he was a hound. But after a while, it got to the point where I was asking my daddy, hey, when are we going to have this barbecue with that goat? And my daddy, he would look and he's like, you know what? I just don't think I can do it. I was like, you can't do what? Because I don't think I can kill that goat. He makes me laugh so much and is so much fun having around. I just don't think I can do it. And I thought that was a little bit strange. But I chuckled and laughed and gave him a hard time about it. And one day I came home and my dad was loading that billy goat up into a friend of his truck. I thought, what's going on? He said, well, I couldn't, we only got this thing because I thought we'd have a barbecue, and I just couldn't bring myself to do it. So we're going to give it to him and let him take it. And he's going to have a big old family gathering, a family reunion. And he decided he'd take that goat off our hands and he would barbecue that goat. I said, okay, all right, well, good luck. Let us know how it tastes, or even bring us some. I'd love to taste it, know what it was like. Well, about a month later, that old boy was visiting with us, and we asked about that old goat, and he chuckled and he laughed, and he said, we were getting ready to slaughter that goat. We were having a big family reunion weekend. We were going to kill him on a Friday night and start cooking him on a Saturday. But as everybody was getting there on Friday morning and they were playing music, that billy goat went around and put its front hooves up on some of the pretty young ladies and started dancing with them. And after that, nobody was able to kill the goats. And so that goat survived a few more years. In fact, I think he ended up dying of natural causes. He had more personality than a lot of folks I know. Oh, man. That Billy Goat. He survived, beat the system, as old Brent Reeves would say, but he got away without being barbecued. But with that said, I will tell you this. There are some places in Tennessee where you can get some good barbecue goat. And I've had some since then, and yeah, maybe we missed out a little bit, or maybe his meat would have been just as tough as he was running with them hounds. But one thing's for sure, while I would eat Billy Goat now, I'm glad we did not eat that one.